Hey, what up y'all, it's your boy DethGalaxy and welcome to another New World video. So today we're getting into the highly requested Keen Speed Bruiser build guide. I'm going to take a look at all my gear, all my stat points, where I put them, basically everything we use as a bruiser and what makes us the Keen Speed build. So let's get right into the video. Alright, so starting off with the video, we're going to go over the weapons here. So the first part of the build, I will start off with my Great Axe. So in the Great Axe here, we are rocking a 3 perk legendary, 31 strength with fortifying whirlwind. I do like having the whirlwind on the weapon because it gives you that 10% damage absorption from slash damage and all damage basically for 2 seconds. It is kind of short, but you can stack it 5 times for up to a 50% defense, which is really nice. If you're in those big clumps, you can put yourself right in there and get some big damage off and take a lot less damage with the fortify stack. Then the other 2 perks are great burst perks here I have on my Great Axe. That we have Thwarting Strikes, deal 12% additional damage while we have Grit, and then also Flame Attunement, attacks deal an additional 18% weapon damage as fire. So fire isn't the best for this. A lot of people do use fire resistance, but it's still good enough. Now Flame Attunement does work on even abilities, so I noticed that Attunement is probably one of the best damage perks to have on your weapon these days because it does work on abilities, and people really take a hit when you hit them with 2 damage perks like this Great Axe here. I did get this for like 80k on the market. There's lots of purple 2 perkers as well. May not have the whirlwind, but if you can get a Thwarting Strikes with an Attunement axe, you're going to be doing a lot of damage. Highly recommend these perks, and I really enjoy this axe. Now into one of the main parts of the build here, we're going to get it right into the hammer, and this is where I do like to keep my Keen Speed perk. So in a lot of my videos, like the PvP build for the Bruiser, I've always emphasized the Keen Speed. That's because I am running this on my hammer. So on critical, I gain 20% haste for 10 seconds. And this is so good for when you hit a big shockwave or something, you hit a bunch of people, you're bound to trigger that crit and get that speed and be able to chase down your opponents and get over to the next clump to lay down some damage. And on this hammer, I also have Chain Ice, which is really nice. So it allows me to use the ice gem, so then I can do more ice damage when I'm fighting people that are on ice storms and etc. And then I also have Thwarting Strikes, so deal 12% additional damage while you have Grit. So this hammer has my Keen Speed, but it also still has 2 big damage perks, so it does hurt when I hit with it, and I really like this hammer. So the main part in this build, you want to get Keen Speed. You can get away with it on your axe as well, but I do recommend to have it on your hammer, and you will notice a big difference in your gameplay. Alright, moving on from the weapons here, we're going to get into the armor. So I'm wearing a bit of a different set. I'm rocking a light helmet, a heavy chest, medium gloves, heavy legs with light feet. So right into the helmet here, what I am rocking is Sundering Shockwave, my first armor perk here. So as you noticed on my weapons, I only have the 1 armor perk on my Great Axe, so I got to make up for that by having perks on my armor. So we have Sundering Shockwave and Resilient. That's the priority here. I would say to get your weapon perk and then a defensive perk such as Resilient or Shuriken Fort. That's going to really help you out. I do need to upgrade this eventually, but this is just a good little helmet I can use for PvE or PvP for now until I do get a better one with the perk. And then we'll move on to the chest here. We have the heavy chest with Sensational Grab Wells, super important perk to have. Then I also have Resilient here. You can pick up a chest similar to this for like 10 to 20k on the market, so it's not too bad. You basically only need 2 perker stuff as a melee to start out. As long as you have your weapon perk and a defensive perk, then it's going to help you a lot for war and other PvP situations. Alright, next up here we have my gloves, and we do have another perk here. This one's Leeching Path of Destiny, so heal for 29% of the damage dealt from Path of Destiny. Really good perk when you're hitting those big clumps to keep you up. It's a lot of survivability, and it's definitely a must-have for your gear set if you're running the Bruiser build. Then we also have Resilient on this piece, and Empowering Breaker. When attacks are blocked, gain a stack of Empower, increasing damage by 4% for 5 seconds. This can stack up to 5 times, and this is a great perk because if you do see when we get into the skill tree later for the Great Axe, there is some other skills that do trigger similar status. When you do hit someone and they block, you gain Empower, so it does help stack with that as well. And then into the pants, we have the heavy legs here with a refreshing evasion, resilience, and penetrating wrecking ball. Feel like not a lot of people use the penetrating wrecking ball perk, but it is super nice. Like wrecking ball penetrates 19% of the target's armor, so I do get a lot of kills just by hitting people with this in the back and they don't expect it. That's another great perk to have. And lastly here on the boots, we have some light boots with Enfeebling Maelstrom. Targets hit with Maelstroms no reprieve or weaken, reducing their attack damage by 14% for 8 seconds. So it's a really good perk to have. You need that in your set. And then we also have Resilience. So we have full 5 pieces of Resilient on the gear here. Some of the third perks aren't the best, but I can use them anyway. We have Invigorated here, so Weaken, Disease, Exhaust, and Rend expire faster. And not full Biss by any means. A few nice pieces though. I do feel like in melee it's not as gear heavy as say like maybe a mage class or something, so you can still do a lot of damage if you have a nice axe and hammer, and then you have some good 2-perker gear. At least as you have your weapon perks and some defense, you'll be able to make some moves. Alright, so that's the armor and the weapons. Now let's get right into the jewelry here. So on the amulet, I don't have the best amulet here, I'll be straight up honest. I do need to upgrade this soon, but the main thing is I do have the health and the divine. If I'm not using this amulet, I would be using the champion's amulet, which has stamina recovery, shirking, and power and health. But for war, I definitely like having the divine, and my healer thanks me for having that. And then the third perk we have here is nature protection. It's not the best perk. I wish it was like ice protection or something, but if anyone is using nature gems, they probably get a little tripped out when they hit me and see it do a lot less damage, but that will be upgraded soon. But for your necklace, you just need health and divine. I recommend run the depths, and you can get that one in there that has like fortified recovery with health and divine. I still need to get it myself in the mutation, but yeah, so basically health and divine is what you want on your amulet. Now let's get into the ring here. So this is a brand new ring I just rolled here. As you can see, my money's a little low, I was just doing some rolling, but yeah, so we just hit this ring. On here we have ice damage, invigorated punishment. So these are the two important perks for this build, because I am running ice gems in my weapons, and having the invigorated punishment gives me extra damage per buff on a player, plus I get the extra ice damage on my weapons. So having those two perks is super OP. I do recommend, even if you can get a purple version of the ring without a third perk, it would still be great to have ice damage with invigorated punishment. And if you can't find one with ice damage, even I was using like an arcane damage ring before, I have that somewhere, yeah, something like this, and you still do extra damage. It's just the main reason you want the ice is because when you're in war and you're fighting people on ice storms, you do get that extra frostbite damage when you're fighting someone who just got touched by ice. So I would say ice is BIS, but the other ones are still great as well to have. And then I do have a third perk on here, crippling. Slow you apply lasts 30% longer basically. This is really nice because if you look at the right tree of the Warhammer, like we will soon, the bottom ability applies slow to all people affected by crowd crusher abilities. So it is pretty nice. I'll be moving around with the keen speed and causing the extra slow with the crippling on the ring. Alright, so that's the jewelry. Lastly, we got the earring. This is an earring I use with almost every build. Basically healthy toast, refreshing toast, and regenerating. This ring really helps me stay alive, and even as a bruiser, I do use the mana pots to keep myself up. I don't think a lot of other guys are doing that, but it does really help to get out of those situations and keep yourself alive. So yeah, that's the weapons, the armor, and the jewelry. Let's get right into the skill trees. Alright, for the skill trees, we're going to start off with the hammer here, and on the juggernaut side of the tree, we are taking Epitome of Bonk, increase armor penetration by 10% for all Warhammer light and heavy attacks. Next, we're taking exhaustive attacks. All Warhammer abilities apply exhaust, slowing target stamina regen by 20% for 5 seconds. Really nice. Then on the right, we're taking hammer time, gaining power on heavy attacks, increasing attack damage by 20%, 4 seconds. And then we're taking hardened steel, adds grit to Warhammer heavy attacks, also grants 12% damage reduction while grit is active. So really nice. And then our first skill, we're taking Wrecking Ball, strike the ground with our hammer, dealing 130% weapon damage and knocking down the target and applying grit. Really nice skill. And then we're taking all the safety measures for that, and then we're also taking Breathing Room, which expands the range of the Wrecking Ball and gives us some fortify. And lastly, on the juggernaut side, we'll be taking Power Through Pain, deal 35% extra damage for 1 second after taking damage. So that's our juggernaut side. And now on the crowd crusher, this is where we're spending the majority of our points. We're taking Shockwave, and we're going to go all the way down to the bottom with Frailty and also Meteoric Crater. Then we're taking Outnumbered, increased damage absorption by 10% if surrounded by 2 or more enemies. That's kind of the same as the one on the Great Axe, so it's nice to have. And then on the right side here, we're taking Guarded Sprint, reduce damage taken by 10% while sprinting. Concussive Impact, deal 15% damage against targets affected by Warhammer debuffs. And then Prevailing Spirit, regain 35% of damage dealt as health when using a Crowd Crusher ability. And then on our far right, our last skill, we're taking Path of Destiny, and we're taking all the perks for that, Seismic Waves, as well as Stimulated Reduction. And then for our final perk here, we're taking Aftershock. Whenever a target is affected by a crowd control effect, they are slowed by 20% for 4 seconds, and this makes that crippling perk on the ring look very nice right about now. Alright, so after the hammer here, we're going to get right into the Great Axe, so let's take a look at that. On the Great Axe, we're starting off here with critical gains. When you critical hit it with the Great Axe, heal yourself for 10% of the damage done. Keen Edge, critical damage increased by 10%. Frustration, when your attacks are blocked, gain a stack of 15% damage for 10 seconds, max 1 stack. So this is the one I was saying is similar if you have Empowering Breaker on your gloves. It's kind of the same thing, so you can get a nice Empower stack that way by having that perk with this one. And then over on the right here, we are taking greed. Light attacks with your great axe give you a stack of 5% damage for 5 seconds. You can get 3 stacks of that. And then we're also taking executioner speed. Hitting 2+ targets with great axe light attacks grant 20% haste for 3 seconds. And then on the right side, the Mauler tree, this is where we're taking all our skills, starting off with whirlwinds, and we're going to go right to the bottom with unending winds, gusting winds, and then also surrounded. We're going to take some perks to the right here. Gravity, after you cause a pool, your foe is rooted for 0.3 seconds. And we're also taking center of attention. Whenever you hold a great axe, gain 10% damage when 3 or more foes are within 4 meters. And then our next skill is maelstrom, and we're going all the way to the bottom with storm's reach, absorb, and also no reprieve. And then to the right of that, we're also taking crowded protection. When holding a great axe, gain 10% damage absorption when 3 or more foes are within 4 meters. And then to the right, we're taking our last skill, gravity well, and we're only going to go down the tree once here to take crowded well. Increase burst damage by 10% for each foe caught in the vortex. Lastly, we are going with Mauler's Fury. Great axe attacks grant a stacking 3% damage increase for 3 seconds, max 10 stacks. So that's the weapon trees for the Warhammer and the great axe. Now let's get into the stat points. So for attributes, I do have some new gear, so I'm not fully maxed out right as of now, but I usually run around 305 strength with 165 con, and then when I take a 40 con food, it will put me up to about 205 con. So I do run that to get the 10% increase to physical and elemental armor at 200 con, super OP, and I do run the 300 strength to gain the grit on my attack. Alright, and then lastly I'll mention here for the gems, we are just running full onyx, so here's our resistances, and basically you can get this gear set started for pretty cheap on the market. There's tons of melee gear as it is one of the most popular classes. Just take a recommendation to buy a weapon perk with either resilient or shirking fort and focus on getting yourself a nice axe and a nice hammer and get your gear that way, and you can slowly build this build up and have a lot of fun getting into wars and OPR and different stuff like that. So, alright, so that's been the Keen Speed Bruiser build guide. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Please leave a like, comment, and subscribe, and I'll catch you in the next one. It's your boy Death, and I'm out. Peace.